All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been making my way through this PDF that's written by Mr. Flavio Copes that's called the React Beginner's Handbook, and kind of stumbling my way through it, but we are getting through it. We're going to finish it with this lecture, and then we're going to go on and do some things that I think will be a little easier for you to understand. In a React app, data typically flows from a parent to a child using props, and that's what those props were for. If you pass a function to the child component, you can, however, change the state of the parent. All right, so you can do that. Okay, and they show an example of that. Let's take a look at the example that they show here on page 31. All right. So it says right here, this is what we kind of looked at in the last one. If you pass a function to the child, you can, however, change the parent. All right. Inside the counter component says we can now grab the set count prop and call it to update the count state in the parent when something happens. You need to know that there are more advanced ways to manage data, and one of those is Redux, which we will again be talking about. Another is Context API, but they're a little bit more complex. All right, so a lot of this stuff, again, this is meant just to have you at least hear some of the terminology with which we'll be working this semester. Okay? All right. As far as user events, React provides an easy way to manage events fired from the DOM, things like clicks, form events, etc. Okay? So you can use the onClick attribute on any JSX element if you indeed want to do that. When the element is then clicked, the function passed to the onClick attribute is fired. Okay, and they do mention this right here. So you can use onClick, as it says, on anything that you have in your program. When the element is clicked, all right, the function passed to onClick, so whatever you're going to pass in here to handle it is fired. And as it says, you can even define this function outside of the JSX. Okay, so about, I don't know, around a week ago, I went and read this PDF from Mr. Copes, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's some good information in it. The problem is, quite often he goes into something that for me to explain it would require a lot of stuff that he hasn't talked about in here, at least in my opinion. All right, so React does support a large amount of events, things like on key up, on focus, on change, on mouse down, etc. All right. Now, the last thing that really gets discussed in here is the author talked a little bit about use state, but there's also use effect. And use effect allows components to have access to the lifecycle events of a component. As it says there, when you call the hook, you pass it a function. All right, the function will be run by React when the component is first rendered. So it is a way, for lack of better words, that you can kind of loop through something to get whatever you want to have happen. Because the useEffect function is run on every re-render or update of the component, you can tell React to skip it for performance purposes by adding a second parameter, which is an array of the state variables to watch for. And they show that in here. So again, the useEffect hooks allows components to have access to the lifecycle events of a component. It says you might find yourself using this one quite a bit. All right, that's it. Now, What I am going to do, what we are going to do as a class, because I thought this was a very weak presentation by me and I didn't really like the material that was in here. But I'm going to go back and take a look at a video by a gentleman that I've got a lot of respect for because I've watched a lot of his stuff before. And that is, this is a video by a gentleman named Mosh Hamandani. And he's got a Node one, and he's also got a React one here. So the React one is right here, and it's 2 hours and 25 minutes long. But if it's as good as I hope it will be, all right, I mean, 60,000 likes, 937 dislikes. Now, the bad news is it's about 3 years old, okay? The good news is most of the stuff in here is fairly timeless, all right? So I'm going to go back and take a look at this, and if I think it's worthwhile, we'll look at it. He's also got one here that's called Node.js in 1 hour, and another one that says how to build a REST API with Node.js and Express. So that's about 2 hours combined. And I'm going to take a look. I'm going to take a look at both of those and see if I think they would be worth our time to go over. And if so, we will. All right, so that's pretty much it for what I wanted to start getting through in this. Again, sorry it was a little weak. I have read through the one I'm going to do next, which is on Node.js, and there's some really good things in there. And there's a lot of stuff in there that, to be honest with you, probably most of us could care less about. So as always, we'll hit the high points, and I'll be back to start that shortly.